to religions that are already tiny to begin with. For example, Jainism, in which they believe the ultimate goal is to achieve complete perfection. Once this licensing begins to regulate parenthood, anybody who is a believer in small religions, such as Jainism, will have their religion completely wiped out. By licensing who can be a parent, the government is contradicting the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is encased in the Bill of Rights from the Constitution Act made in 1982. With this license, the government will be going against the very laws of the land that they created. Secondly, by installing this law, people will miss out on the benefits of having children. Firstly, having children turns a couple into a family. With a child, you now have a piece of both of you that will continue on even after you are gone. You can feel proud that you made a significant contribution to your society. Secondly, children equal love. When you serve someone, typically you grow to love them. Having children means that you experience more love in your life because you are the one that they look up to. You're the person who is responsible for them, nurtures, and provides for them, which in most cases equates them to their love and respect for you as their parent. Thirdly, you get to be a kid again. By having children, you can do childish things and get away with it, such as going to Disneyland or playing in the park. These are activities that you don't normally see couples without children doing as a pastime. This license would take away the joy that children ultimately give parents and would replace that with prejudice and ridicule. Compare this test to a G1 test. If a person were to fail something as simple as a G1 test, they face ridicule from their peers, and that is something of minuscule importance to society. Imagine then if a person were to fail a test like this. It would ruin the character that people perceive them to be. It would make it look as though you are a terrible person if you do not pass a test that dictates whether or not you would make a good parent. Also, this test would ostracize anyone who does not pass the test. Just as how in the Nazis' early stages of dominance, anybody who was a Jew or of Jewish relation was ostracized. Implementing this license may not seem like it is on the same scale now, but the minute you start saying that person A is a better option to reproduce and further a nation over person B, you begin to use the same mentality that they had, rationalizing atrocious actions for the good of the nation. What will be the requirements for this test? It is only a matter of time before there's a preferred race, because genetics may prove that this race creates more athletes and this race creates geniuses. Eventually, everyone in Canada will be the same. This license will take away our country's best feature, our multiculturalism and our genetic variation. How is the government going to ensure that people obey this regulation? And what will they do if people don't obey? Thirdly, creating this license will have a negative effect on Canada's population. Canada tends to allow many immigrants into the country because as a country, we do not reproduce as fast as others. For example, according to Canada's demographics, our birth rate is 10.3 births per 1,000 population. In comparison, the United States has a birth rate of 63 births per 1,000 population. By having more immigrants come to Canada, the chances are they will have their children in Canada and their children the same, overall increasing our population. However, by installing a law that regulates who is even allowed to have children, that becomes a deterring factor to anybody who is considering immigrating to Canada in the future, which means that we would lose potential citizens that we as a country need to further our population. In conclusion, citizens should not have to be licensed in order to become parents because such a law goes against the rights and freedoms the government has already set out. This license would also take away the happiness of Canadian citizens, not increase it, and this license will reduce our population and ruin the chances of more immigrants coming to Canada in the future. Thank you.
Can we have the closing statement?
Is she supposed to close? It's like, oh, this is actually. Wait, so is it she who's supposed to close or?
No, it doesn't
It's
matter.
fine, okay.
Yeah, you choose.
Okay. In conclusion, parents should have, or we should have a license to become a parent. Almost half of all pregnancies are unwanted. Many of them lead to actually being born. Sometimes parents will have hatred and resentment towards their child. We can prevent this. If the parent doesn't want the child, why not either prevent them in the first place from having him, or not, or not having their free. Is it possible I could restart? My mind is all in jumble, sorry. Abuse and neglect can lead to lifelong consequences that can affect the said child, as stated before, depression, self-esteem issues, isolation of fear, and trust issues, mainly. Parents should be on both a stable, on financial, and a mental ground, and if they aren't, the child can be led. The child can have no guide in his life and have nowhere to go. If extreme cases of abuse can also lead to extreme cases of abuse, such as Dahmer, can be prevented if both parents are willing to act with the child and be there for him at every point. As well as many smaller things need licenses, such as driving, guns for hunting, fishing, and teaching, such as that. So why shouldn't parenting need a license? Yeah, I think that's it. Sir, can I go to the washroom?
And more students. Okay, let's hear the closing.
In conclusion, although unwanted pregnancies are an issue, they can be prevented by using protection. But this license will hinder the dream of those who do want a child and have a planned pregnancy. Implementing this license takes away a person's sense of privacy and would create a God complex for the government. God has given us the choice and the ability to reproduce, and humans should not dictate the gift of reproduction that God has given us. That intimate decision should not lie in the hands of the government. The approval of this license will only allow those who pass to move on to the next stage in the natural life cycle, which contributes to how you develop as a person. Those who do not pass will be affected psychologically. This will especially affect women. Women are the ones to bear the children, and by taking that away through either forced abortion or other means, the female has a higher chance of experiencing depression. According to the social exchange theory, people develop relationships to gain something out of it. Men look for fertile women for marriage so they can continue a bloodline. If both partners fail the test, then they will experience disappointment, which could also lead into depression and separation. Since there is a 50-50 chance of passing or failing this test, if a person were to fail, that means that the government is taking away their rights, especially if said person is religious. This license would be going against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Section 2A and B, which essentially states that we have a freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, opinion, and expression. This license would go against the laws that the government has already created, because to further religion, there needs to be believers. The easiest way to create more believers is by having children and raising them with a specific faith. Also, if a person were to fail this test, this license would take away the happiness that they could have in a potential family and would replace that with ridicule and shame, leaving room to debate whether or not this license would truly be our country's ruin, because failing the test would create prejudice, which in the context of who should reproduce and who should not, makes our country comparable to the Nazi regime. Also, this license would negatively affect our country's population. As a country with a low population compared to others, such as the US, we need more citizens to increase ours, and this license would lower our population, not increase it. Having this license would be a deterring factor to immigrants who would consider being Canadian citizens in the future. Overall, it is immoral to force people to take a test that will judge whether or not they will make good parents. You can only find out if a person would make a good parent after a child is born and the parent has proven they are capable of caring for a child. Thank you.
Okay, Mateo, can you turn the camera off? Thank you very much, guys.